My wife left me, walked out after my accident when I couldn't teach or walk. For years later, she's back, begging for a second chance, but she's not ready for my answer. They say your life doesn't change in an instant, but mine did. 1 second, I was checking the tension on the stage rigging. The next, I was waking up flat on my back with faces hovering over me and the metallic taste of blood in my mouth. My name's Caleb. I'm 42 years old. I live in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and until the fall, both literally and figuratively, I was a high school drama teacher. Not the kind that sat behind a desk all day. I was in the thick of it, building sets, blocking scenes, running rehearsals that went past sunset. I lived for it. Theater was my church, and my students were my congregation. I also had a great home life, or at least, I thought I did. My wife, Melissa, and I had been together for 16 years. We had 3 kids, Ava, 12, Jonah, 11, and Ruby, 7. A loud, messy, deeply loving little clan. My life was chaos in the best way. That morning had been like any other. I dropped Jonah off at school, scarfed down a cold bagel in the staff lounge, and headed to the auditorium to inspect the catwalk before Tech Week began. The rigging had seemed off last time, and I didn't trust the shortcut fixes the janitor swore would hold. I climbed up the ladder, same as I had 100 times before, and started checking the pulley system near the backfly. I remember crouching down to get a better angle, then snap. A sound like a rifle crack, then a rush of air, and then nothing. They said I fell 16 feet. Landed on my left side, narrowly missed a steel chair someone forgot to fold up. My shoulder took the brunt of it. Shattered, the doctor said. My spine didn't fare much better. I woke up in the ER under bright lights with my legs buzzing like live wires. Melissa was there, clutching my hand, her face pale and tight. I was still dazed from the morphine when the neurosurgeon came in with the news. Caleb, you've got a burst fracture in your thoracic spine and significant nerve compression. We're going to do everything we can, but I want you to prepare yourself. Mobility may be permanently affected. They said other things too, rotator cuff destruction, torn ligaments, nerve trauma, but I couldn't hear them. All I heard was the static in my ears and the scream I couldn't let out. The kids came to visit that night. Ruby climbed into the hospital bed like it was normal. Ava sat quietly at the foot, her eyes wide and scared. Jonah held my hand like it was glass. I smiled through the fog, tried to act like it was just a bump in the road. But inside, I knew the truth. The stage that had been my sanctuary had become my ruin. The fall didn't just break my body, it cracked the foundation of everything I'd built. And nothing would be the same again. The first week after the surgery, Melissa was at the hospital almost every day. She brought my favorite snacks, the ones I couldn't even eat yet, and talked nonstop about home, the kids, the dog. It felt like she was trying to distract both of us from what was happening. I was stuck in that stiff hospital bed with tubes in my arms and no feeling below my waist, and Melissa, she just kept talking. But something was off. Her eyes were distant. Her smile didn't reach all the way. At first, I chalked it up to stress. I mean, she was handling everything, the kids, the house, the bills, and still coming to see me. That had to be overwhelming. I figured she just needed time to adjust. Except the visits started getting shorter, then less frequent. I'm so sorry, babe, she said one night, kissing my forehead while she gathered her purse. Ruby cried all day at school again, and Ava's falling behind on homework. I can't keep leaving them. I nodded, even though I didn't really understand. The nurses said I'd be moving to rehab the next day. I needed her. I just didn't know how to say it without sounding pathetic. Rehab was worse than I expected. It wasn't just the pain, but that was constant. It was the humiliation, being wheeled around, needing help to pee. Watching therapists half my age talk to me like I was a lost cause. Every small victory, lifting my arm an inch, twitching a toe, felt like trying to move a mountain. Melissa came twice the first week. Once with Ruby, who cried when she saw the bandages on my back, and once alone, for exactly 26 minutes. She brought me socks. I don't even know if she noticed I was crying when she left. Then, 2 weeks into rehab, she showed up without calling. I thought maybe it was a surprise. That she was finally ready to talk. Maybe even spend some time helping me settle into this new reality. Instead, she had a manila folder under her arm and a blank look on her face. I think it's time we talk about next steps, she said, not even sitting down. I stared at her. What do you mean? She slid the folder onto the table by my bed. Divorce paperwork. Her name signed at the bottom. I can't do this, Caleb, she said, her voice flat. This, life. The kids need someone strong. Someone who can keep up. I can't take care of all of you. I've been drowning for years. This just made it real. I couldn't breathe. My body was still. My heart wasn't. You're leaving me because I got hurt at work? She didn't answer right away. Just looked at the wall like it might answer for her. I need someone who contributes, she said finally. Not someone I have to carry. That was it. That was all she said before she walked out. A week later, I found out she was seeing someone new. His name was Brett. A fitness influencer, according to the internet, tan, toothy, and always smiling in every photo, usually shirtless. He taught high-intensity boot camps and made smoothie recipes on TikTok. He looked like the opposite of me. Melissa had already introduced him to the kids. That was the moment I realized I hadn't just lost my legs. I'd lost my wife, my partner, the person who was supposed to hold my hand when the lights went out. And now that I was in the dark, she didn't even look back. One Monday morning in early April, I woke up in a new bed, not a hospital one, but one with mismatched sheets and a sunbeam falling across my chest. I was at my sister Nadine's house. She'd shown up at the rehab center 2 days after Melissa served me and said, flatly, "You're coming with me." That woman can choke. Nadine was 5 years older, a nurse, and absolutely zero bullshit. She lived in a small ranch house in Brighton, Michigan, drove a Subaru, and cursed like a trucker when she was angry. We hadn't been super close growing up, but blood runs thicker when everything else drains out. You need a place to stay. I've got a spare room. That's it. Don't argue. I didn't. I couldn't. I had nowhere else to go. The first week there, I mostly slept. The painkillers dulled everything, not just the injury, but the grief, the shame, the creeping sense that my life had tilted into something unrecognizable. Nadine kept the fridge stocked, got me a rolling walker, and yelled at me every time I tried to do something stupid like get up by myself. On the second Sunday, she walked into my room holding a folder and tossed it onto the foot of my bed. "You need to sue the school." I looked at her, confused. "The catwalk," she said. "That whole system was janky. You said yourself they cut corners. That's negligence. File a claim, Caleb." I stared at the folder like it was radioactive. "I'm not trying to start a war with the school district. I love that job." Nadine folded her arms. "And now you can't walk. They owe you, Cal. You've got 3 kids and no income. Stop thinking like a teacher and start thinking like a father." She had a way of cutting right to the bone. The next day, she introduced me to a lawyer named Hal Brenner. Hal looked like someone's Uncle Balding, wore sweaters in May, had yellow legal pads stacked in towers around his office. But he was sharp. "Open and shut, if you ask me," Hal said after reviewing the accident report. Maintenance signed off on a system that hadn't been re-inspected in 2 years. "There's a paper trail. You ready to go after them?" I nodded. Not because I was ready, but because I couldn't afford not to. Meanwhile, Nadine pushed me to start physical therapy again, this time at a small outpatient clinic a few towns over. The work was brutal. Every stretch, every rep, every damn minute felt like climbing a mountain with cinder blocks tied to my back. But I kept showing up. I didn't have a choice. It wasn't just about walking. It was about fighting for something. For any part of myself that still existed before the fall. A few weeks into therapy, one of the PT assistants handed me a flyer. "Thought you might be interested," he said. "Support group. Local educators who got injured on the job. Good people." I stuffed it in my pocket, figuring I'd forget about it. But that night, after staring at the ceiling for an hour, I found myself Googling the address. The meeting was in the basement of a Unitarian church. 8 folding chairs. 2 old coffee pots. People with canes, walkers, wheelchairs. They shared stories. One woman had slipped on a wet cafeteria floor. A man got a concussion breaking up a fight. No one flinched when I talked. No one looked away when I choked up talking about Melissa and the kids. A retired coach patted my arm and said, "Don't worry. We've all been gutted. Doesn't mean we can't sew ourselves back up." It didn't fix anything, but it made the silence feel less hollow. 2 months into living with Nadine, she came home from work one Thursday, tossed her bag on the couch, and said, "You're coming with me tomorrow." "Don't argue." "I'm not in the mood," I said, not looking up from my laptop. I was filling out another pile of insurance paperwork. "It's not a request," she said, already rummaging through the fridge. "My friend Vanessa needs help setting up for some fundraiser. Local theater thing. She's short-staffed, and I told her you know stage is like the back of your hand." "Nadine." "Caleb," she said, shutting the fridge and looking at me squarely. "It's not a job. It's a few hours, some lights, some chairs, some dusty props. You can sit and boss people around, just like you used to. Might be good for you." The next day, I found myself in a small black box theater in downtown Howell. Nothing fancy. Brick walls, exposed beams, folding chairs stacked along the side. But it smelled like sawdust and old curtains, like home. And that's where I met her. Vanessa was pacing near the stage, her phone tucked under her chin, barking into it like a drill sergeant. "No, the risers go stage left, not, I swear to God, Dave, if you show up late again, hold on." She turned, eyes locking on me. "You the broken teacher?" Yeah, great. You can sit your ass right here and tell me if these flats look like garbage." She pointed to a row of painted backdrops leaning against the wall. I blinked. Okay, that was our introduction. Vanessa was a lot mid-40s, short-cropped hair dyed fire engine red, black boots, no patience. She didn't sugarcoat anything, and she didn't treat me like a fragile antique. That alone earned my respect. By hour 2, I'd somehow become her de facto second in command. She asked my opinion about the lighting rig. I showed her a better way to anchor the curtain weights. She grunted her approval and handed me a bag of peanut M&Ms. "Keep that brain working," she muttered. "You're not as useless as you look." I laughed harder than I had in months. Over the next few weeks, she kept calling. At another event, meet someone with half a brain and no ego. Or, "You still breathing? Good. I need help taping floor lines." She never asked about my injury. Never tiptoed around the fact that I was slower, weaker, sitting more than standing. We just worked. One afternoon, we were painting flats for a youth summer showcase. She tossed me a roll of tape and said, "You ever think about running something like this?" I shrugged. "I used to. Back when I had a job and a spine." "You still got your brain," she said. "And your instincts. That's more than most people in this racket." She leaned against a stack of chairs, looking at me sideways. "I'm serious. We could start something. Small. Just a few shows a year. You handle scripts and logistics. I wrangle the chaos. You want to partner with a half-paralyzed former teacher?" She grinned. "I've worked with worse." I didn't say yes that day. But when I got home and Nadine saw the pain on my hands, the smirk on her face said everything. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a burden. I felt like me. For years. That's how long it had been since I'd heard my daughter's voice outside of court documents and secondhand rumors. Since Melissa packed up the kids and moved to Arizona with Brett the Blender Boy, my access had vanished overnight. Phone numbers changed. Emails bounced. The last Christmas card I sent came back marked "Return to Sender." I kept every letter I wrote them. Every email I tried to send. I even kept the screenshots of the custody lawyer's responses when I asked for help. "Sorry, Caleb, but without funds to reopen the case, there's not much we can do." And then, one Thursday night in October, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I was at the theater, helping Vanessa hang lights for a Halloween kids showcase, my hands dusty and my legs sore. But something made me press accept. "Hello." There was a pause. Then a shaky voice. "Dad?" Everything around me stopped. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. My legs went weak and I dropped into a folding chair. "Ava." My voice cracked. "Oh my God," she breathed. "It's really you." She sounded older, not quite the little girl I remembered, but not yet grown either. I could hear traffic in the background, like she'd stepped outside somewhere just to make the call. "How did you?" "I've been trying." "I know," she said quickly. "I found everything. The letters. The emails. The voicemail you left when Jonah turned 11. I found all of it on Mom's old laptop." My throat closed up. "I thought you gave up on us," she said, her voice trembling. "That you didn't want us anymore." That's what she said. That you moved on. That you were too broken to be a dad. "I never stopped trying," I whispered. "Not for 1 second." She started to cry. And I did too. She told me they were still in Arizona but planning to visit Michigan for a weekend. She'd already talked to Jonah and Ruby. "They want to see you, Dad. Please say we can." I looked around the empty stage, saw Vanessa up on the ladder adjusting the light, saw Nadine sweeping confetti off the front row with a giant push broom. "Of course," I said. "You can stay here. I'll get the place ready. I'll make it perfect." The next 2 days were chaos. Nadine turned into a drill sergeant. She dragged me to Target for new linens. Vanessa installed a window lock in the spare room and built a bookshelf from scratch. She even added a string of fairy lights for Ruby. I hadn't seen that woman use a screwdriver in her life. We scrubbed the house top to bottom. I took out every photo I'd ever saved, laid them across the dining table like proof of love. Birthday pictures. School art projects. A photo of Ruby asleep on my chest the night she came home from the hospital. They arrived on a gray Saturday afternoon. I was waiting on the porch, hands shaking. Ava stepped out first. She was taller than I remembered, all angles and confidence, her long brown hair in a braid. Then Jonah, quieter, his voice deeper, eyes darting around like he didn't know how to feel. And then Ruby, holding Ava's hand tightly. I stood slowly, afraid to blink. They ran to me. The hug felt like coming back to life. Later that night, after tacos and too much ice cream, Ava pulled out the letters. "I thought you didn't care," she said, wiping her eyes. "But you wrote us every birthday, every holiday." "I even kept copies," I said, opening the folder. "Every one that came back unopened." She looked at me, eyes burning. "Why didn't you fight harder?" "I did," I said. "I just ran out of money. Not love." None of us said much after that. We didn't have to. It started with a picture. Ava had posted it. Just a simple snapshot of the 4 of us on the front porch, the kids bundled in jackets, me sitting in my chair, Ruby on my lap, grinning like we hadn't lost 4 years. She captioned it, "Finally home." It was up for maybe an hour before the call came. "Melissa." I let it ring the first time, then the second. By the third, Nadine was already glaring at my phone like it was a grenade. "Just answer," she muttered. Might as well hear what she has to say. I tapped the screen and held it to my ear. You manipulative piece of, she started, her voice already shaking with rage. What did you say to them? What lies did you feed them to make them post that crap? Hello to you too, I said calmly. You had no right, Caleb. You don't get to rewrite history and turn my kids against me. Melissa, I didn't have to rewrite anything. They found the truth all on their own. She fell quiet for half a second, then spat. You think you're the hero now? Because you played the sympathy card? Because you saved some birthday cards and turned my children into your little audience? They're not an audience. They're my kids. And you erased me. You were gone, she shouted. You were broken, Caleb. You couldn't handle a family anymore. You didn't even give me a chance. Silence again. Then she said, lower now, almost like a whimper, Brett left me. For some influencer with 6 million followers and a yoga line. He's gone. I didn't say anything. I made a mistake, she whispered. That's true, I replied. You made a dozen. There was another long pause before she said it, soft, measured, like it would land gently. I want to come see them. Maybe we could try again. You and me. I laughed. Not a cruel laugh, but the kind that escapes when someone says something too ridiculous to process. I'm not the same man you left in that hospital bed, I said. And I'm definitely not the man who'd take you back. You don't mean that. I do. Melissa, you didn't just walk away. You slammed the door on me when I was at my lowest and told the kids I didn't care. I spent years trying to reach them. You were building a new life with a protein shake and a tank top. She said nothing. I've got a good life now, I added. Theater. Friends. My sister. And Vanessa. That last name hit like a dart. That woman, she snapped. The one who dresses like she just crawled out of a garage? She saw me when no one else did, I said. And she stayed. You'll regret this. No, Melissa, I said, calm and clear. I regret staying quiet when you started fading. I regret thinking love meant being easy to leave. But I don't regret walking away from you now. I ended the call before she could respond. From across the room, Vanessa raised an eyebrow. She says she's coming to burn the house down? Not yet, I said. But I think we finally turned the last page. Melissa didn't go quietly, of course. A week after the call, I got a letter from a lawyer, some slick family law firm in Scottsdale, full of jargon and empty threats. She was reevaluating custody arrangements and exploring legal options for reestablishing residential rights. It was smoke. All smoke. I showed it to Hal, my own attorney, who barely blinked. She's got no standing, he said, flipping the letter aside. She left the state with the kids, denied contact, and there's a paper trail. Let her try. But it wasn't the legal part that worried me. It was the emotional toll. Ava found the letter in the kitchen and read it before I could hide it. She's threatening custody, she said, her voice thin with disbelief. After everything? She's desperate, I told her gently. She's trying to scare us. Jonah, standing behind her, said what none of us wanted to admit. She's not done messing with us. But in the end, she was. Melissa backed off within a month, not because she had a change of heart, but because the kids refused to talk to her. They stopped answering her calls, stopped replying to her guilt-ridden texts. They'd seen the truth now, and they weren't going back. She returned to Arizona. I heard through a distant cousin that she was working part-time at a boutique and living in a condo with roommates. The kids asked less and less about her. Eventually, not at all. That spring, the lawsuit against the school district finally settled. It wasn't some massive, TV-style payout, but it was enough. Enough to stop scraping by. Enough to build something. We used the money to buy a crumbling warehouse on the edge of town. Vanessa and I gutted it with a volunteer crew of teenagers and theater kids who didn't care about splinters or dust. Nadine patched people up when someone sliced a finger. It took 6 months, 3 minor code violations, and about 800 slices of pizza. But we did it. We turned that warehouse into the Hollow Stage, a non-profit youth theater center with 2 small performance spaces, a costume shop, a tech booth, and a lounge full of beat-up couches and mismatched mugs. It wasn't fancy, but it was alive. Ava took to writing. She had a sharp eye for dialogue and a wild imagination. She wrote her first one-act play that fall, a comedy about a ghost who haunts a vending machine. Jonah became obsessed with lighting design. He could spend hours alone in the booth, tinkering with shadows and color washes, grinning when he nailed a mood just right. And Ruby? That kid had an eye for costumes that stunned me. At 10, she was hot gluing sequins and repurposing thrift store skirts into pirate coats. Vanessa called her the tiny wizard. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were building. Together. Vanessa and I never made some big declaration. We didn't need to. She started leaving her toothbrush in my bathroom. I started leaving post-it notes in her lunch. The rest fell into place. I still had bad days. Days where the pain flared, where my legs refused to cooperate, where the weight of everything I'd lost hit me like a bag of bricks. But now, when those days came, I wasn't alone. And for the first time since the fall, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the rest of my life to begin. It had already started. The house lights were still down, but I could feel them, the kids backstage, buzzing like soda cans that had been shaken too hard. Whispering, laughing, pacing. The air was thick with nerves and hairspray. I sat in the front row, right aisle, the usual spot. My cane rested against the chair beside me. Vanessa was crouched just off stage, clipboard in hand, whisper yelling at someone about curtain timing. This was our first original play, The Glass Kingdom, written by Ava, designed by Jonah, costumed by Ruby, and performed by 23 kids who'd never touched a stage until they walked through the doors of the hollow stage. I watched as the crowd filtered in parents, teachers, friends. It wasn't sold out, but it felt full. Full of people who had shown up. Full of people who mattered. Curtain in 5, Vanessa whispered, sliding into the seat next to me. Think they'll remember their lines? I smirked. 50-50. You look nervous. I always do before a show. You're not in it. Doesn't matter. She leaned over and kissed my cheek. You've got that face again. What face? The one that looks like you're about to cry but are too stubborn to admit it. I laughed under my breath. She wasn't wrong. As the lights dimmed fully, the chatter died down, and the first cue rang out from the booth, one of Jonah's custom-made sound effects, a low magical hum that shook the seats just a little. The curtain parted, and there they were. Ava's dialogue rang clear and sharp. Ruby's costume shimmered in the colored lights. Jonah's sets cast the perfect shadows. It wasn't perfect, a few stumbles, one missed line, someone dropped a prop sword, but it didn't matter. It was theirs. It was ours. When the final line was delivered, when the stage fell dark again, the silence broke into applause. I could feel the vibration of it in my chest. The clapping, the whistles, the hoots from parents and siblings. Vanessa nudged me. They want you. No, they want the cast. She stood and held out her hand. Caleb, go. I grabbed my cane and rose slowly, one step at a time, my left leg stiff, my right hip aching. As I made my way to the stage, the lights went up again, just a soft glow this time. I reached center stage and turned to face the audience. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. Behind me, the kids spilled out, giggling, waving, some still in costume, some already half out of theirs. Ava ran to my side and grabbed my arm. Jonah gave me a thumbs up from the wings. Ruby did a bow so dramatic the entire front row laughed. The applause kept going. And for the first time in years, I wasn't hearing it as noise. I was hearing it for what it was, proof that I was still here, still building, still worthy. I wasn't the man I used to be. I was better. As the curtain fell for the final time, I looked at my children, at Vanessa, at the sea of people clapping for something we made together. I had fallen. Hard. But I hadn't stayed down. And that was the story I wanted them to remember.